Hey, what's up, Dom?
Hey, how's it going?
Good to see you again,
Yeah.
virtually as always. Um, Welcome everyone. We're starting our stream today. It's sort of a special topic because we are. Maybe some of you know this already, some of you don't. We are partnering with Sketchfab again on a contest, and for those not familiar with Sketchfab, which I find it hard to believe somebody who is interested in watching this stream wouldn't know what Sketchfab is, but Sketchfab is an awesome website that has a giant collection of 3D models and of all types, and is searchable, and you can upload your own models and collections of models and things like that. And
They have an awesome web-based viewer to preview the models and
amazing,
show
yeah.
them off to people. Yeah, it's really cool.
And so we are super excited to partner with them again on their latest contest, which involves hubs. And I will go to the page so you can see what we're talking about. This is, oh, I scrolled too far down. Here we go. This is what they're calling the Interdimensional Art Event Challenge. And there are actually two parts to this contest, and we're going to be talking about one of them today, and we're going to save the other part for another stream just because I think there's a lot to cover. And today we're going to be talking about the avatar portion of the contest. But if you go to the Sketchfab page in their blogs, they talk about this particular challenge. And you see a little message from us, info about this stream. And then there's two parts. One of the parts is creating a whole scene, like an environment kind of thing. And there are specific requirements for what you need to have for that. And I won't really talk about those today because that's a whole other topic. But avatars is the other part. And if you go on, you scroll down a little bit, you can check out one of the avatars in their viewer here. This one was actually created by one of our Hubs team members as sort of a Hellboy tribute here. It's a super cool model. He did kind of a cell shading
Yeah, it's really
style,
cool.
which is really, really cool. And this works really well in Hubs too as an avatar because you can, see the head move around. And when you talk, the little cigar and mouth move a little bit. And also in Hubs, that flame flickers like a little flip book. And if you've watched our streams before, you could learn how to do that. So the theme is an interdimensional art type thing. So, but it's really, this is really kind of open, basically. We talk about just creating a 3D model of an imaginative avatar from another dimension, whatever that means to you. And we really emphasize optimization because, as many of our Hubs users know, like getting an avatar into Hubs is pretty easy. Getting it to perform really well is a little bit trickier, especially if you're used to just working with million triangle models and things like that. So definitely more in the game development realm of optimization. So we're talking in the contest rules we have here, using a maximum of 5,000 faces. That's like triangles for your model. You are allowed to use all of the sort of physically based render channels like base
Mhm.
color, normal, AO, ambient occlusion, roughness, metallic, and emissive texture maps. That's a lot. That doesn't mean you have to use those. You can also just do a base color map and leave it at that. That's okay too. Really just try to match whatever style you're going for. Um, don't go over 10 texture maps because it starts to be a lot on the web. And try to keep them under 1024 by 1024 or less for each of those maps. So, and then at the end, you need to upload it to Sketchfab. You have to tag it appropriately. You can read all these things. I'm going to read, I actually kind of just did read all of it, but that's okay. And then what we also want you to do is to either use a Hubs room that you made or one that exists already. You can create just like one from a template and upload your avatar in there, and we can see it working. The cool part, the prizes. What do we have for them, Dom? We have the first place winner. There will be a first, second, and third place winner. The first place winner wins, along with a year of Sketchfab Plus, which is super cool. Um, you win one of these. This is a. Can you? I don't know if I can. I can't see my
Yeah.
screen right now. Ah, there we go.
You got it.
You win one of these bad boys. This is a 3D Connection, which is owned by Logitech, so it's a good product. A Space Mouse Plus. Is it a Plus? What do they call it? Space Mouse
Pro
wireless. I happen to have one of these myself. This was not given to me. And if you don't know what one of these is, you should check it out. They're super cool. You basically use this little knob for the most part to control your 3D viewport, and it works in like any software, like Maya and Max and Blender, and you can even use it in 2D applications like Photoshop or After Effects or things to do panning and zooming and stuff like that. But and then it has all these additional buttons on it that you can either use like pre-configured, like switch to top view, side view, all that kind of stuff, or like you can program these to do whatever you want. You can invert the controls, all kinds of cool stuff. But anyway, this one happens to be wireless, like the one we're giving away for the contest.
And the knob in the middle has a bunch of degrees of freedom, right? Like you can rotate it, but then I think you can also like pull it up and down, right?
Yeah, so it moves left, right, up, down, toward and away from like the table, and then it can rotate in all directions. So you basically get 6 degrees of freedom on your objects. And then it has like built-in shift and control and like keys that you use a lot. So really what it does is it keeps you from having to take your hand off your mouse to do stuff on the keyboard. Because you can do a lot. And it also, honestly, for me, the reason I started getting one of these was it helped with like carpal tunnel syndrome. I was having a lot of mouse clicky stuff, and I realized that most of my motions were the
viewport
moving the
adjustments.
viewport around.
Yeah.
So super great gift. There's also a framed art print of your work. There's, like I said, a year of Sketchfab Plus, and a gift card also, $250 gift card or equivalent. That's a lot of stuff. And then second place gets 6 months of Sketchfab Plus and a $50 gift card. Third place even gets 3 months of Sketchfab Plus and a $25 gift card. So this is pretty great. You can read through the rules. Those I won't read all of them. I'm going to be one of the judges. And we have 2 other guys on our team, Manuel, the one who did the little Hellboy avatar, and Christian, who has done some amazing work for us on both avatars and environments.
He just released a new space today, actually. Check it out, the outdoor space.
That's true. We have a really cool space. We'll probably show that one next time when we do the environment stuff. And so we're judging on different criteria: quality and creativity, presentation, all those things. But just make sure you read the rules, make sure you're eligible, and this should be really great. And so today what we wanted to do was talk a little bit about like how to go about it, because I know that if some of the viewers are more like Sketchfab users who are maybe more just 3D artists who haven't done stuff with hubs, and maybe you're not even that familiar with what hubs is and what we do, you can check that out. But we're going to talk a little bit about how you would turn your avatar, your character, into an avatar for hubs. So if you've watched some of our streams before, this will be some repetition. There are some new things in there probably that we'll cover, since we have new features that have happened over, I don't know, 6 months or whatever since we last did one about avatars. It was maybe longer than that, actually. So
I forget.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Was it a year? I don't know. This past year, it could have been a month ago. I don't know. I don't know at this point. So yeah, this is super exciting. So what I was doing earlier was looking at models on Sketchfab and pretending like I had made them and saying like, what would I do if I've made my thing, I've uploaded it to Sketchfab, how do I get this thing into hubs? And so it's not that difficult a process, but it's really important that your model sort of meets those criteria we talked about size and textures and things. That'll make your life a lot easier. One of the really great things though is that Sketchfab already does a lot of the work for you in a way, because when you upload your model to Sketchfab, if you wait a little bit, and I don't know what the timing is on it, but it doesn't take very long for the Sketchfab servers, or I don't know how they do it. I guess
magic.
The magic of Sketchfab, they turn your model into one of the formats that we use, which is a GLTF format, and that makes it super easy. Once it's uploaded, you wait a little bit, and you can download it as a GLTF, and it'll be kind of ready to go. But if you want to do further things to it, like make sure the skeleton works and make sure like when I move my head around, or if I want to make the mouth move when I talk and things like that, you're going to want to bring that into some software and do what we're going to show today. In our case, we're using Blender because another thing we love Blender, and it's free and pretty easy to learn. But we'll get into some of the details. I'm going to take a look real quick just at some different models. I made an avatar actually out of this model last week or maybe the week before because I thought it was a super cool model. The only issue for me was, I mean, it was beautiful. If you look at this model up close, it's got lots of detail.
Nice
it's using lots of different textures. The only issue for me was a little heavy on triangles because this is a 48,000 triangle model. And while it would actually work in hubs, it wouldn't work that well, especially for people who are on like mobile devices, or maybe they're on a VR headset that's not as powerful as some. So if you take a look at the model inspector in Sketchfab, you can see it's actually, the topology of this thing is really nice.
Oh, wow. But there is a lot of triangles.
But there's a lot of triangles. It made it very easy to reduce, though, using Blender's decimate tool. So I did some of that for this. The other thing was it didn't have any eyes. It has these empty eye sockets, which I found a little unnerving, especially as an avatar. So
Yeah.
I made some eyes for it and stuff. But one of the first things I do when I'm looking for models that are already in existence is look at the model inspector that Sketchfab provides and make sure it's in a pretty good state to go. This one was pretty ready except for the triangle count, and so all I had to do was go to the download 3D model button here, and one of the options is auto converted format. That's something they do for you. So it's converted into a GLTF. I hit download. It comes through as a zip file that you can unzip, and then you can just import that GLTF into Blender. I want to look at a couple other models that are actually really good examples of things that would work great right out of the box. Like this one, for example, is just a bust of a character. It's called Stylized Bust, and has a lot of nice maps, but the triangle count was really nice.
Yeah, really nice. Yeah.
Really smooth. I would say the eyes are about the only thing that are a little heavy, and if you look inside it, you'll see like they're full spheres. You could probably cut some of that out, if you wanted to. But it just, this one, even though it says it has metalness and roughness, it actually doesn't have a lot of these maps that are particularly important to run in hubs. Like you could get away with just a base color, and it would look kind of flat, but it would be great.
And that's actually an important thing to note. So if you're running on mobile, like on a phone or on a VR headset, we're actually not going to use the PBR shader. So the only thing that's going to come through is your diffuse map, I think. And I think we also apply the emissive map automatically as well, but it's going to be completely unlit. So
right, things like an AO map are nice. You could blend that with the base color and get a nice, little bit of shadowing in there and stuff. So these are just options. Like you don't have to have a normal map to get all the bumpy texture like this. Here's what it is without the normal. Like you can see, what the surface looks like. That's a great example. There's so many on here. I mean, just to shout out to Sketchfab again. I mean, and a lot of these people have put up here. Every single one I'm showing so far is downloadable. Like somebody's made this free for you to grab, and check the licensing terms. Like this is a Creative Commons attribution, which means you're pretty much free to use it, as long as you give credit to the artist. Not really an issue for this contest because you're going to be making original work, but I just thought I'd raise that a little bit. This one's actually, I couldn't figure out why it was 8,000 triangles because I was like, man, this is really efficient. Then I zoomed in on the eyeball.
It's all in the eyes.
Not only the eye. Look at the pupil of this eye. It's like it's so
wow.
heavy.
Yeah.
Like that would be very easy to optimize. And this isn't to call out the user named Mopra who made this. It's a super cool model. But for rendering, this would be great. For hubs, it might need a little optimization to work better. Some of these are just fantastic. Here's a great one.
Oh wow, that's cool.
This llama, I almost turned this into an avatar. It was so cool. Yeah, it's got really just a diffuse texture. That's it. It doesn't
And
really have.
all that's painted in, like all
Yeah,
the
yeah,
strings and
it
stuff
doesn't really
painted in.
have
Looks really
anything
nice, yeah.
but that. And it's just a beautifully painted map. They said they made this all in Blender, and then I think they used, what did they say? In, is it Krita or Krita? I don't know, that free paint tool. So they,
Hmm.
yeah, super awesome. It's a little heavy on polygons. This one was like 11,000, mostly because of like there's a lot of detail in the
Hmm.
some of the accessories on this, but like, yeah, you could clean that up a little bit. It wouldn't be bad. Otherwise, just beautiful model. And then like this one was another example. I thought, boy, that would make an awesome avatar. But again, this 22,000 triangles, you could optimize that. The topology of this is really, really nice. So it would actually decimate pretty well in Blender. But we can talk about that another time. What I ended up going with, because of the challenge, the interdimensional, I thought, what's more interdimensional than Raul from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas? Um, and this one happened to be extremely low poly, so I thought it was a great example of just like, you know, different style, and it only has a diffuse map, so it's pretty simple, but it's very, very streamlined and simple. And you can just see the wireframe, or you can just see the texture there. It's pretty nice. So what I did was I downloaded this. I chose the GLTF format, and then unzipped it, and now I'm ready to bring it into Blender. So you can imagine you either maybe started with it in Blender, or you just brought it in. And so what I'm going to do is just choose import, and then the GLTF 2.0 import option here.
And if for the contest, if you've created your model in some other editor and it doesn't happen to export GLTF, Blender can import pretty much any kind of model format you can think of. So there should be some model format you can export to and then get it into Blender. You're going to have to export it to GLTF, but the import side doesn't have to be GLTF.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, if you've made it in Maya, for example, and you export it as like an FBX or an OBJ or something like that, you can pull it in here pretty easily. Sometimes it'll be rotated 90 degrees on some axis, because
or like the materials won't exactly line up. I mean, the nice part about importing it as a GLTF is like, you know, that you're going to get the material set up correctly automatically in Blender in a way that'll export with GLTF.
So I went ahead and imported it, and I want to talk a little bit about what happens, like what a GLTF looks like. It can be a little weird because there's, first of all, scale could be an issue. Each grid on each grid square in Blender right now for me is a meter. So this is a
You're not showing your Blender screen.
I'm not showing my Blender screen. Here we go. So I brought this into Blender. Just to be clear, I went to File, Import, and then GLTF. If you don't see all the options that I have in here for importing and stuff, most of these are just add-ons in Blender that come with Blender, and they may not be on by default. So you can always go to your Edit Preferences, and I know you can't see the window that just popped up, but if you go to the add-ons section, just you can either search. There's like a search field. You can type in like FBX, and it'll find the one you're missing that you're looking for.
I think GLTF and FBX and so most of the standard ones should be enabled by default, but if they're not,
I think OBJ isn't, and I know a lot of software exports OBJs, so just be on the lookout for that. But when this first comes in, you'll want to turn on texture so you can see it, and you might notice on this guy it's a little. You're seeing some Z fighting on parts of it, and really this is only because it's so giant. Each one of those grid lines is a meter, so this guy is like 20 meters tall or something. He's
yeah, and you might be used to, like, if you're just modeling not for games or not for something like hubs, you might be used to just scale not really mattering, right? It's like, well, whatever size you make it, it doesn't really matter. But in hubs, things actually have scale, and you're going to be moving around them, and you don't want your avatar, presumably, I mean, you might want this, but you probably don't want your avatar to be the size of a building, and so the actual real world scale matters a lot here.
It does. And if you're not sure about the size, usually what I do is not worry about it right away. If I'm just cleaning up a model, if I'm just trying to get all the parts the way I need them, I do that in one file, and then I'm going to show you in a minute what I do to import it into our hub's avatar template file, and that's where the size, it'll all make sense.
And ideally, and I think you'll probably show this, but you want to not just scale it, but actually apply that scale to the vertices.
Exactly. So the way this comes in, if you look at your hierarchy, is it has a thing called root node, and then it says GLTF orientation matrix. This is stuff that Sketchfab does under the hood when it creates the GLTF. And really, these are just empties in the scene. They're kind of hard to see, but and they're also very small right now in this size. So
because of the scale.
but if you expand this, and if you want to expand it all at once, you can hold Shift and click it, and it'll give you everything.
I didn't know that.
That's a pro tip. There's a lot of stuff you don't need. Like, you don't need all these empties that are all nested under each other. Really, right now, all I need are the actual objects that look like these inverted orange triangle icons. So you can actually see this thing is made out of 5 different parts, which isn't ideal because each one has its own material, which translates to its own draw call and stuff like that. It's technical stuff, but I don't need all these extra nodes. So what I usually do is I select them either one at a time or individually, and I drag them up and out of the hierarchy that they're in. Another way you can do it is to select all of them. I'm just using Shift and clicking each one. And then with your cursor out over the 3D viewport, just hit Alt-P, and then that clears the parent. And so what I always choose clear and keep transformation. I don't want it to get moved around or anything.
Right.
And so when you click that, you'll see over in the hierarchy, now these are all flat on the base, and then the rest of these are all just doing nothing at this point. Right. And you can go ahead and just select these and delete them. They're not needed anymore, so I just hit X and delete them. And then looks like there's a few extra ones that got in here. I don't know where they came from. They look like some kind of pivots or something. But really, in the end, all you want to see is just your main objects. And just so you know, those nodes aren't going to break anything. But it can make it a little confusing when you're trying to figure out what the scale is and all that kind of stuff. So now I can select these and you just pick them in the viewport a lot easier and know that I'm not nested under some crazy hierarchy. So the other thing that a model would probably do better at is if all of them were combined into one mesh. Again, not 100% necessary depending on what you're trying to do. For example, Christian, one of our artists on the Hubs team, created an avatar system where he really wanted people to be able to like change accessories like hats and glasses and things like that.
Yeah, and you also won't be able to do this if you actually want different material properties. Like, if you want those glasses to be shiny and, you probably don't want the rest of the skin to be shiny, you'll have to keep them separated. But combining as many things as you can is the best thing to do for performance. So when you can do it, then do it. And a lot of it you can also achieve. A lot of the material properties you can just achieve through maps. So even if you want part of it to be shiny and not the other part, you can apply that through a map instead of applying it as a material property.
Right, and just to look at this one a little bit, if I go to the shading workspace, what you'll see is that each part, like I'll select the face, is using its own material. The GLTF importer exporter, that's part of Blender, tries its best to figure out how the material graph should be set up, and it actually does a pretty good job. Some of this is a little weird when I'm looking at it now. It's doing some sort of non-standard things, like mixing a transparent BSDF shader with an emission shader.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of this is going to be specific to this importing, which for the purpose of this contest, obviously you're
not that important,
because you're going to be building this stuff from scratch. But this could happen if you're starting with an editor that's not Blender, for example. If you're building this all in Blender, things by default are just going to be set up kind of correct for you. Build things at the right scale, and then the normal principled BSDF material that Blender uses is already going to be correct for exporting.
Right, like you wouldn't have all this stuff. Mm-hmm. You would just have a principled BSDF node like this, and it's base color piped in, and then it's surface piped out, and now it actually has shading on it because it's right. Not like self-illuminated like it was before. But it's up to you how you want to set it up. I would have to go through each one and change that. I'm not that interested in doing that right now, so I'm just going to leave it alone. But I wanted to show it. The other thing that's important to look at, like if you're using someone else's model or just checking your own, is when you check out the different maps that are being used. Like this guy's face is using, what's it called, Material 62 base color JPEG, and that's listed over here.
That's going to be covered up by our faces there, so if you want to move that
way. Oh, yeah, good point. I'll slide it over a bit. That's better. So this, is how the face is unwrapped. Ideally, like I said, all of the different textures for this guy would be on one big sheet.
Mhm.
And you could do that now and bring it into Photoshop and lay them out in one, and then you'll get a much more efficient model. 5 textures isn't going to kill you anyway.
But yeah, I mean, since you're building this from scratch anyway, like trying to do as much as you can on combined maps. I mean, we say the to limits in 1024, so you're probably not going to be able to combine necessarily everything into one. But the more you can get into one map, and the more you can get just the number of meshes down, the better. I mean, one of the things about avatars, especially, is you have to think about like there's not just one avatar in a scene, right? You're going to have a bunch of people, and so um, even if you're talking about going from one draw call to two, or one material to two materials, that's going to be multiplied by the number of people in the space if everyone is using kind of a similar avatar. And so any reduction you can do for avatars is actually really important.
Yeah, that multiplicative sort of
Hmm.
thing matters a lot. Just imagine 20 people were using this avatar at once. If they were all, you know,
Right.
80,000 polys each,
Yep.
you'd quickly hit a ceiling. So the other thing is this particular model was made sort of in segments. Like the head and the
Oh,
torso are not
interesting.
one, and that's actually okay. If you're not like maybe the most confident organic modeler out there, if you want to make it in pieces and parts like a robot or like a doll, like it'll still work. Um, you may decide to blend those together and weld vertices and all that, and I probably would, but for demonstration purposes, I'm just gonna combine all these by selecting all the parts. The cigarette's its own part. That cigarette has its own 1024 map, by the way, which I was kind of like, oh man, I don't need that. But select all the parts, and then I'll hit Control J to join them. Whichever part you select last, it'll be called that. So now this thing is called Box 002 Material Number 1040. It's a terrible name. So I'm going to
Nice.
change the name to just Raul as his name. And the sometimes I rename the mesh underneath it too. I like to call it like Raul underscore M or something for the mesh. That's not necessary, but I just do it for. I worked in game development for a long time, and working collaboratively, you learn to clean up nice for other people too. But it helps yourself later. So now this is actually all one mesh, and I could call it done, and it definitely needs more optimization for like the materials and stuff, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. What I am going to do is save it, and I'm going to save this file as I'm calling it Raul. It's a blend file. I'm just going to save it. Again, the scale is still way too big. It's enormous, but I'm not going to worry about that until I know how big it should actually be, and I won't know that until I use our template file, and that's generally how I work. Even though I've been doing this a long time. I'm going to go to what was I going to go to? Oh, our web page with our exporter on it. We talk about this often. The Hub's Blender exporter. You can do a search for that, or you can go to this
So switch
site, which I'm
windows.
about to switch to and show you. It's really hard to manage a stream. You're the come on, are you kidding me? Just remind me later. Shh, don't look at my stuff. Okay. So this is where's my text? There it is. Boom. GitHub.com/Mozilla Reality/Hubs-Blender-Exporter. And Dom, tell us a little bit about this. Give us an overview, would you?
Sure. Yeah. So this is an add-on that exposes an additional set of tools and components that are specific to Hub. So people in chat are actually already asking about this. People who have probably watched our previous streams are asking about like, can they use the UV scroll component in their scenes and avatars? And so yes, you can. They're not going to show up in Sketchfab because these are specific to Hubs. But you can use those as part of your scenes, and they will work in your scenes and in your avatars when you bring them into Hubs. So yeah, this add-on exposes some additional features to GLTFs that are specific to Hubs. So the light map support, which is something that when you bring it into Hubs, will allow you to apply some pre-baked lighting to your scenes and avatars. This is something we've done previous streams on. It's kind of complicated how to set it up, but can add a whole lot of dimension to your stuff. And what's really cool is you can bake indirect lighting into the scene. So when you have a light shining on an object, and then that object then bounces light onto other objects, you can bake that all into a light map. And so that can be done in a really performant way, which is really cool.
And if you want to know more about those, go to our YouTube channel,
Yep.
and we have lots of playlists on those topics, and you can find them. And yeah,
And yeah, then the other big thing is the components. So Hubs has a bunch of components that are available to do lots of different things. We have like components to do UV scrolling, like some people have talked about, billboarding. We recently added like a video texture thing, so you can render a camera on a surface. Also, there's some more basic things that you're going to need, like putting spawn points into your scene. So you can do a lot of this and we'll go over this in the kind of in the next stream. We're talking about scenes because a lot of these apply there. But you can do a lot of this in Spoke, our scene editor. But you can also bake this stuff in directly in your Blender file using this exporter.
excellent.
And for avatars, that's really the way you're going to do this.
Now, as far as templates go, if you go to another GitHub page we have, and I have it up here, I don't have the text written out above, but it's Hub's avatar pipelines, and in there you can clone this repo, and it tells you how to do it on here. I know it's a little confusing at first if you're not familiar with Git, but we talk about how the avatars are set up, and basically a lot of the stuff we're about to talk about. But if you're looking for the files to start with, we have Blender files in here that you can download. And I'm about to open one of those Blender files and show how it works. So once you have your character saved wherever it is, you're going to want to open a different file. And this file that I'm opening is it's under, again, it's all in that description, but you can, I use the one that we use for like our basic bot, the avatar bot base for export file, which I know you can't see my file browser, but so here it is. When you open this up, you'll see the default sort of like old Hubs robot avatar, and it's really in there just for scale and understanding like how things are set up. But I use this as a starting point. What I usually do when I open up this template is immediately save it as the new file that I want to do. I don't like to overwrite this one, so I just go to File, Save As, and then I save it with my the new asset that I just made. So I'm going to call this one Avatar_Raoul, even though it's not him yet. But now I know I can just work in this file and not worry. So this is the correct scale right now. You can actually see now that one of these squares is a meter, so you know it's only about he's less than 1.6 meters tall, but in Hubs, when he gets raised up off the floor, because he doesn't have legs,
Yeah.
We sort of simulate like where your head would be if you were standing.
Yeah, when you're when you're not wearing a VR headset, the default avatar head is going to be positioned 1.6 meters off the ground. So that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're sizing your avatar. That they're not going to be placed directly on the floor. They're positioned based on the position of the head bone.
Yeah, we do a little bit of magic under the hood there to make it so that everybody's eye level instead of like some people being tiny and others.
Well, and and then if you're actually wearing a VR headset, your avatar is going to be positioned at your actual height
That's
level.
right. Yeah, so I bring this in and I leave it as is, and then what I do is I go to File, Append, and I bring in the other file that we just worked on. So I'm going to go to File, Append.
And now we're going to see how big that
I'll browse
actually is.
I'll browse to that file. Yeah, it's going to be funny. I'm going to browse to that file. I know you can't see the window, but you go to your blend file, my Raoul blend file, and then it's actually going to ask you like what part of the blend file do you want to bring in, and you go to Objects and then find. That's why I named it Raoul instead of that weird name that it had. And then when you hit Append,
oh yeah,
it comes in, and then you're like, what's happening? Oh, how big is he? Oh, he's very big, and he's facing the wrong way.
And facing the wrong way, yeah.
Which is a good example, because you'll need to know how to fix that. When you build an avatar for Hubs, you're going to want the character's face to be, if let's say you're in Blender, because I know other software up is Y sometimes instead of Z, but at least in Blender, in Z up world, you will want your avatar's face looking down the negative y-axis. So if you look at my top corner thing here, the positives are the ones with the little sticks, and the negatives are the ones without sticks. So I need him actually facing, let me hide him for a second. I need him actually facing, he's way huge, the way this robot's facing, which is down negative y. So anyway, I'm going to unhide him again. And first, let's get him face the right way. I'm going to go ahead and select him and just hit, you can use the rotate tool, whatever. I just hit R, Z, 180, and then enter, and then he'll face the right way. That's like the shortcut key way to do it. Rotate Z, 180, enter, and then he's going the right way. But he's still way too big. So I'm going to go ahead and just scale him down. Now, when you scale in Blender, it may not scale like that. It may like scale more from his center, depending on how this is set. Or like, I don't know, it might, these are all actually working for me, of course. Of course, when I want to show an example, but I'm actually scaling, down, but it doesn't really matter. If you scale it, just don't do that. Flipped it. You can scale it down and then, move it if you need to. I'll probably need to move this because, oh yeah, it's scaling. Oh, the 3D cursor wasn't at the origin. It's like up a little bit. So yeah.
And there's a question in chat about scale. If you can make avatars that are bigger than the default robot. So you certainly can. That's an artistic choice you're making. Keep in mind what that's going to feel like to embody that avatar and what it'll feel like for other people to see it. The biggest issue, like I said, is going to be that the head position is always going to be, if you're not using a VR headset, 1.6 meters off the ground, and if you are using a VR headset, it's going to be your actual height. So you might have to, if you want to do that, you're going to have to do some tricks about where you actually position the head bone in order to get it to stand on the floor in the way you want it to. But it is possible to do.
So I scaled him down, and you saw me in the front view. I kind of like moved him. If you use, I like leaving the robot there because it gives you kind of a sense of where the eyes should be roughly. Not that it has to be. If you're making some crazy interdimensional character, maybe it has like 20 eyes. I don't know, but this is just a guideline. So I'm sort of keeping in mind that he's like more of like a bust, so he's like chest and head, and our robot is kind of like chest and waist and head, so it'd be kind of about there. But he could be smaller or bigger by a little bit, and it wouldn't make that big a difference. This avatar also doesn't have any hands, and the robot does, and I bet a lot of people wonder about that. I don't know if anybody's asking about that, but you do not need to make hands. It just means that if you don't, and somebody wants to use this avatar in a VR headset, they won't see their hands. They won't have anything to like use.
Yeah, it would be nice to have some sort of hands, even if you don't want to go through and model, something perfect. Having even just blocks or something like that.
You could even rip the hands off this robot and use them if you wanted.
And then when you're not using it in VR, the hands will just be hidden, so it's totally fine. But it's nice to make the avatar available to people who are using VR headsets to at least have some form of hands. And ideally, you have hands that actually look like the
like the character, not like these weird segmented robot hands. But what you're looking at now that I have highlighted is the actual skeleton, which is really pretty simple, except for the hands. The hands are actually kind of the most costly part of this thing. This avatar also doesn't have like eyeballs. They're actually there if you look under the sunglasses. I noticed that the texture, there's actually an eye in there.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to see it. But since it's not an eyeball, it's just painted on. I'm not really going to use the eye bones to move them around or anything.
Yeah, the position of the eye bones does matter, though, because the camera in World, the first-person camera, is actually going to be positioned between those two eye bones. So it actually does matter where those are, even if you don't skin anything to them.
Yeah, it'll end up right where that 3D cursor is right now. That's where the camera will be looking out. So
you can use that. You can use that creatively to position the camera in a different spot or something if you're trying to do trying to do something funky. But
that's true. But don't feel like you have to do anything with the eyes other than maybe just leave them there and ignore them. So I think that size is pretty good. But the one thing you'll notice now is that when I select my mesh of this guy, and I open up the transforms here, you can hit N, and it'll open this little side panel. You can see that its scale is 0.00005, which is very small from what it originally was, that 20 meter tall guy. And so, as Dom mentioned earlier, you're going to want this scale to read 111 before you export. And so once you've got your scale where you want, just get in the habit of selecting the mesh and hitting Control A, which will open up this little apply menu where you can say apply scale, and that will now make the scale read 111.
And you can ideally do the same thing for rotation as well.
I should do that because I spun them around, right? And now the rotation values are kind of weird. So you can actually just hit Control A and then choose all transforms, and it'll actually move its pivot point to the origin, which is exactly what I wanted, and reset all these values to be zeros or ones, whatever they need to be. And so we're in good shape now to attach this thing to the skeleton. And so I'm actually going to go ahead and get rid of the robot now. Just select the mesh itself and hit X and delete it. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say there's a question about the hands, whether those map in VR to finger movements. So as part of this default Blender file, this template file, there's a bunch of animations on the hands that include all of the different hand poses that we do apply in VR. So when you pull the trigger button or the grip button, that'll trigger some of these different animations to play, and that will move the hand buttons. So if you do rig your
there they are,
your avatar to this skeleton, you'll get those for free. You can change how these are animated too. That they don't have to be this way. They do have to keep the same names for them to work.
Keep the names the same, but I mean, you could have it so that, like, I don't know, what if you made some weird alien or something, and when you pull the index finger one, which is called index down, L and R, right, left and right, you could make it do something other than the animation it does.
I've definitely seen creative the people in VR chat have done this, like where they, especially early days, they would modify the hand pose animations to do all sorts of crazy stuff, and so you can do that in hubs too.
Yeah, the only thing that you may need to do because your avatar is different is either adjust the skeleton a little bit to match like where the neck and the head rotate and stuff, which I'm about to do. But if you have more tentacles or you have other parts, like you can add bones to this skeleton by extruding new bones off of it and stuff. Just bear in mind, don't change the names of the original bones that are there right now.
Yeah, having the names is important, and the rotation is also somewhat important. I forget exactly the details.
I'll show you what happened. Well, I'll talk about it a little bit. So right now, the basic part of the skeleton, if you ignore the hands, is really this base part, which is called. I'll open up this armature tab. You can see they're the hips. That's what I called this bone. And then, so that's the hip bone, then the spine, and then the neck, and the head. And then the left and the right eye are children of the head. They're just not connected. So like if I go into pose mode and rotate it, like you'll see the eyes move with the head when it rotates. Rotating left and right. But the other thing that we do in hubs, which I'll show when we get in there, is we do this sort of fancy thing just to make them look a little nicer, where the head and the rest of the body are on a delay from each other. So like when you rotate your head in VR, the shoulders will follow a few frames later, just to get a little bit of more fluid motion.
It slightly lags behind. And this happens whether you're in VR or on a desktop or whatever. And so it's something you're going to have to get to look correct for your avatar.
The only thing I will caution about is the relationship between the neck and the head. If these bones aren't lined up like this, it's hard to know if this is a bug or more just how it works. But
probably some combination.
But if they're tilted off of the z-axis too much, when you rotate your head left and right, it may not correspond to left and right on the avatar. It might tip a little bit weirder. It's kind of hard to describe. I might show an avatar in a minute, like where it does that. But you can use it to your advantage if you like that look. But what I usually try to do first before I move bones around is just get this guy positioned the best I can, front to back, in line with these bones, and then go from there. So like I might put it there and then go into edit mode for the bones and like maybe move the neck down here and maybe move this guy down a bit, or the base of the skull here kind of. And then this bone doesn't really matter except that you just want it kind of maybe up through the head a little bit. But these are slightly off axis. It's okay. Like they're slightly tilted, but not a big deal. And the other thing that's really cool is that once you attach your mesh to the bones, you can still adjust the bones afterward. And so I think it's just about good to go. The only thing I need to do is attach it to the skeleton. And in Blender, you do that by selecting the mesh, holding Shift, selecting the skeleton, and then hit Control P. And you have options. How do you want to parent this? And we're looking at these ones that under armature deform. You can choose with empty groups, with envelope weights, with automatic weights. It's going to try its best to like skin it properly. The cool thing is that the if you choose empty groups, it'll already put these vertex groups in your mesh. So I'm going to pick that one. It won't deform yet, but I'll just do it manually since this thing is so low poly and simple. I'll choose empty groups.
If you choose empty groups, that's not going to put anything into the vertex group, so you're going to have to manually...
I'm going to have to assign them, yeah. So what that means is when I select the mesh and I go to the Object Data Properties tab, the little green inverted triangle thing, you'll see all the names of the bones in here as vertex groups, but they're not assigned to anything. Like there's no verts assigned to these groups. But I'm going to do that now, and it's very simple. I like doing it in side view, and I like doing it in wireframe to make it easier to select. So I'm just going to hit Tab to go into edit mode. I like to use the lasso tool sometimes. Let me just Alt-A to deselect everything. And then I'm going to select all these guys here. Basically everything from like the neck up, all the verts, and I'm going to assign them to the head bone. And I just make sure I have the vertex group selected called head. This weight slider is all the way up to 1 and hit assign. That was really easy. And then I'm going to actually just invert the selection with Control I and assign all them to the spine, which is where is the spine bone? Oh, it's the second one. Yeah. So they're assigned 100%. You don't have to do 100% weights. It'll do smooth weights if you want organic movement and stuff, but this one's really, really simple. And now we can test it by getting out of edit mode, selecting skeleton, going into pose mode, which is bones have a special mode that's different from edit. Pose is where you actually animate. And now when I select, for example, the head and the neck bone, and I rotate them, like you actually see it affect the mesh. You should see that you can see the neck only has verts kind of at the top and the bottom, so it stretches a bit, but that's fine for this really low poly character. If you want more smooth movement, again, you can assign more subtle weighting to these bones.
And there's a whole art to skinning things. That's like,
yeah, I could spend a whole week on that topic, but I won't, because most people who are gonna try an avatar contest may know how to do this, but I'm not sure. So that seems pretty good. There are idle animations on this thing already. I'm not going to worry about them. If you do nothing else, you can just save your file and export it as a GLB, which is a form of GLTF. I also like to make sure that the mesh that I have is in the same collection as the root of the avatar. And you can do that just by selecting it and then hitting M, and then that moves it to the collection you want. So it's in this one called collection low, and now it's all in one big hierarchy here. So when it's time to export, if you want to make sure you're only exporting what you have selected, you can do that by selecting all the objects in the collection, and then File, Export, GLTF. Now you're not going to see the menu that pops up, unfortunately. I wish you could see it. But you're going to want to save it with a good name, and make sure that if there is animation, you have those checkboxes turned on. The defaults are usually fine. The only one that might give you some trouble, there's a checkbox in there called Always Sample Animations. And if you export it and you have animation on it and it doesn't work, try flipping that to whatever it wasn't, and then export it again.
For animations, if you are going to want those, there's going to be some additional steps you're going to have to do to get the actual animations to play, and that's what's going to be with the component stuff. I don't know if
we'll go into that right after I show it.
But if you do nothing else, do note that your animations will not just automatically work. They'll need to do something else to get that to play. In hubs anyway. I think in the Sketchfab viewer will show your animations regardless. But
yeah, and one of the other things I do is there are a lot of free GLTF viewers on the web. This is one of them by a guy named Don McCurdy, who's very active in the 3D community. Mm-hmm. And you can just do a sanity check really quick. Like if you export your model, and then before you even want to bring it into hubs, you just want to make sure, like, did this thing actually export right? You can drag and drop that model you just made into this web page and see. Oh, look at it. There it is. It worked.
Yeah, this GLTF viewer is super, super useful. It's been invaluable for us working on hubs because it also is a sanity check for if something works in this and then not hubs. We know there's a bug in hubs and not 3JS. But if it breaks in here, then it could be an issue with the model or with 3JS. And so,
and in here you can even test like your hand animations. Do they work by checking them? I don't have any, but if I turn on the skeleton, you can see like kind of a very stick figure-y skeleton there. As I check these different boxes, you can actually see the animation. Like there he is pointing his. It's behind us, probably on the stream. Wait, let's do his left hand. Like he's kind of like pointing his finger now. So the animations are working. And if you have morphs and things, you can check those. In here, you can also play with lighting and play. You can see my face has a different shader on it than the rest of the body. But anyway. Yeah, so it's just a sanity check. But when you're ready and you want to do it in hubs, you're going to go to hubs.mozilla.com and you can create a new room. And by default, it'll just pick our... actually, what does it pick today? Do we have our new space in there yet?
I'm not sure if that's our new default.
It may not be the default yet. No, it's not the default. But you can just join any room. If you're just testing, it really doesn't matter.
The room may impact the lighting in the space. I think this room is mostly using bake lighting. I think there is like one directional light, and so avatars will be lit in that way. But just keep in mind that when you bring avatars into a space, when you're looking at your avatar, the environment lighting is going to impact how your avatar looks.
Right. And if you want to see your avatar, a quick way to do it is just hit the letter I on your keyboard. That's like a sort of special mode where now I'm in sort of a third-person camera. And there's that metal meat guy that I made before with his creepy eyes.
Oh yeah, you billboarded the eyes. I remember when you.
Yeah, not on this one, but yeah, the other one I did. So they always looked at everyone, which was creepy. But anyway, from here you can actually hit Edit Avatar if you want. You can also do it from the More menu, but I'll do it right from here. Hit Edit Avatar, and then Change Avatar, and now. This is all my avatars being listed. All the featured ones are in a different tab. But if you want to create a new one, there's a big button here, Create Avatar. And now it shows you some of the default ones, but there's a button right under them that says Custom GLB. Let me blow this up a bit so you can see it better. Custom GLB. And now, I'm not sure you can see that menu that popped up.
No, that's just a standard file dialog.
I'm finding my avatar that I exported called avatarraoul.glb. I hit open.
And now you don't need to specify, this confuses people, and rightfully so, this interface is kind of confusing. You don't need to like upload a base map or anything here. The point of that is we allow you to override skins on avatars so that you can take an avatar someone else has made and then, override the texture on it to make a new avatar. But if you're creating a custom avatar with a GLB file, like you upload the GLB, you don't need to then upload a base map or click on advanced and upload any of those other maps. Those are overrides.
Yep. Very good point. I've seen some people get confused about that a little bit. Maybe we should just relabel that and say like
Yeah, I think it's
skin
just a confusing name.
override or
Yep,
something.
yep.
That would be an easy change. One nice thing though, and I think this is really important, especially for our Sketchfab people, is attribution. So this isn't my model. I didn't make this guy, but I should credit it. And so I always keep this open so that I can find who made it. In this case, this guy named Kotman Sam from Finland. Thank you, sir, for your cool model. And I grab the URL right from his page, and I add that as a link in the attribution, so that people know who made it. He should get credit for it. Anyway, and then I'll hit save and hope that it works. It doesn't, there may be a problem with it I don't know about, but I'm going to click it. It will now show up as my avatar, and I need to hit accept over here, the green button. And then you should see me change, yay, into my avatar. Now you can't see it move around unless you have like a second
You just bring a camera
window.
into the
But a camera works. Yeah, you can do place camera. And now if I pull this closer to me and I look around, you can see the shoulders move a little later than my head, and I can look up and down, and the head is moving appropriately. And that's basically it. If you did nothing else, that would work.
The lighting on the avatar looks a bit weird. I think that's because you did change the face to use the principled BSDF and then didn't really mess with the values.
Yeah, the face is responding to the light in the scene. So like if I face this way, face where the sun is, it's actually like lighting my face up more than if I.
And it's pretty shiny just because you have like the default.
Yeah, he's kind of greasy looking.
Roughness and.
Although if you've seen the movie.
Yeah, that's not exactly wrong. Yeah.
He's pretty haggard by the end, but yeah. So I'd probably want to adjust that if that wasn't the look I was going for. I'm going to go back to Blender really quick and just talk. Dom, maybe you can explain just a little bit about the component system, just an overview of like what that means. And
yeah, so like I was mentioning before, we have the Blender add-on that lets you add components, which are basically just ways to add functionality at runtime to your models. So by default, when you bring in a model, I think we're going to talk about animations here. When you bring in a model, nothing tells it to start playing an animation, so it's not going to play an animation. And so we have a component called loop animation that you can tell it to just continuously loop an animation. We also have, for avatars, components that let your avatar respond to the user's voice. So we have a few different audio feedback components. I think right now we have two. We have the scale audio feedback, which will allow you to, if you put that component on a node in your scene graph, so like the head bone, or you can put it on, the hand, whatever. You pick a thing and put that component on it, that component is going to scale in response to the user speaking. And then we also have a thing called the morph audio feedback, which will change a morph target weight based on how the user is speaking. And the morph one's really useful to do, like if you want to actually have a mouth open and close, you can create a morph target with the open mouth, and then use the morph audio feedback to apply that.
For our Blender users, a shape key is what they call it in Blender. But yeah, common terms to be used: morphs, blends, shape keys, things like that. They're all the same. But in this case, I believe that the default avatar that we started this file from has the head bone automatically scaling when you talk.
I might already do that.
And I think I muted my mic when I went over here. Let me go back to our.
And sometimes in the camera tool, it doesn't always show it.
Yeah, you may not see it. The frame rate of this camera viewfinder is a little slow compared to the scene. But if I unmute myself and I talk, I don't know if you can tell. Is my head scaling? I don't know.
You might need to use another avatar or another window to see. But let's double check. I think you can look in the Blender file if that component is on that bone or not.
So if you select the armature and you go into edit mode and select the head bone, and it'll tell you up here if you have it selected. And then go to that single bone. It looks like a cartoon bone, sort of a dog bone looking bone. Yes, it has a component on it called scale audio feedback, and it has a min and max size that it'll scale. The default is 1, which is don't scale when I'm not talking. And then if there's sound, scale 1.5 times what you were before. So it would be like,
Yeah, that'll be like at the maximum loudness of that
it'll
user.
scale like
It'll
that much bigger.
max size. And yeah, so just to reiterate, in order to get that hubs section in
It'll do
Blender,
that.
you'll need
That's
to
pretty big,
install
actually.
you'll need to install the hubs Blender exporter add-on that was linked earlier.
Yes, and then you'll see this little hubs drop-down menu. And it's different depending on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do a morph, you actually put that on the mesh itself. If you're just scaling bones when you talk, you put it on the bones. Makes sense.
Yeah, and if you go to our YouTube, there's from previous streams, we go pretty in depth into how to do all this stuff. There's a lot. Like if you click on just the add component, you can see how many different components we have available to add. There's lots of different stuff.
Check them out. Does that menu show up? I can't tell if
Yeah,
it's
it
on the
does.
stream.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, look at all that.
And a lot of them don't really make sense for avatars, but there are definitely creative things you can do. Like the billboard component is a fun way we talked about, like having the eyes always track other people, or you can have something on your head that is
like a sign or something that always faces.
Lots of different stuff. And then we have another stream too, how you can integrate webcams into your avatars too, so you can have the user when they stream their webcam, they can actually put that onto a texture of your avatar, and so you can make that a feature available to your avatar if it makes sense.
Yeah, that could actually work quite well for this contest. I know they again that won't show in Sketchfab, but we take it into account in our judging too. Using cool features that match what you're going for in your design. So the Morph audio feedback component is here. That you would just add to the mesh, and now you need the name of the morph. So in this case, like I could do a little morph, like maybe make his cigarette move when he talks in the movie.
Oh, that'd be cool.
He
Yeah.
talks in like kind of a muffled voice a lot. We could do a quick shape key here. I'll just hit plus on the shape key. I'll hit another plus to make our other key, and then I was inspired by Christian did an avatar like this too early on that did this. I'm gonna maybe let me think about this. I guess I'll just move this whole thing.
Can you do like the proportional editing?
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. I'll do like a linear proportional edit. So I'll move the end one, and then
I'm learning how to use Blender.
It'll move less. It'll move less and less as you go back. So now when I hit like G to move it up or down or something, if I mouse wheel, it'll expand along. Oh, it's not attached. Oh,
just cut it off right.
You see that it's not attached.
Yeah, I see that.
That's a thing. I think it's because I have connected only on. Oh, that's why. Now I can.
You just gotta be careful. You don't want to grab his face too.
Yeah, good point. So if I move this up now, his lip can move a little bit. I'm okay with that. So now when he talks, like what it'll do is like that a little bit. Right. The glasses are moving too. Whatever, I don't care.
Good enough.
It's fine. You get the point. I'm not trying to be that careful. And then, so the name of this morph matters. I'm just going to call it like talk. And then back over in the object properties where I added the component called morph audio feedback, I'm going to type in the name talk. It is case sensitive. And it'll go from 0 to 1. That's the max.
And you could actually overdrive the morphs and stuff too.
Yeah, like if you wanted to go more than I did here, you could go higher. Like you could see what it would look like if it could go all the way to 2 and go higher than that. But I'll just leave it at 1. It'll be subtle. And I'll re-export it, and it should be what I want. Wait, I think I still have selected on. I don't want selected. Just export everything. Do it. Do it. And now I go back to Spoke. And the only thing is when you re-upload your avatar, you kind of have to like delete the old one and make a new one. Not my favorite workflow, but it's okay. I'll do it the same way I did before. I'll just hit I to look at myself, and then hit Edit Avatar. Change the avatar, and I can't like upload over this one, so I could leave it. Sometimes I leave it just in case I don't like the thing I just did, and then I'm like, oh, let's go with the old one. But I'll upload my guy again.
Yeah, this is a bit of a pain, and to just describe the reason, I mean, we don't really have to go deep into it, but like because you can override the textures on avatars, we don't let you edit the mesh after you've already created an avatar because someone might have. You can remix avatars and you can share avatars and build other avatars on them. And so if someone has edited like the texture, we don't want the mesh to swap out from under them. And that's why you had to create a new one. But
So, oh look, I'm talking and my cigarette's moving. I love
yeah,
it.
that's really cool.
Now when I talk, I get a I get a little bit of movement out of this cigarette. Um, so yeah, you can be creative that way too. Like we've seen users do some really cool stuff with when they're talking, like meshes appear that weren't there because they scale up or they do really cool things. And I encourage you, especially if you're new to hubs, like check out our Discord community. We've got a really active community of creators who are always really forthcoming with knowledge and will answer questions. So if you're feeling a little bit like, I don't know about this contest because I can model, but I don't know any about this hub stuff, like come to our community. I guarantee you people will help you
Yep.
and get you on your way.
And also check out all the the library of like existing avatars we have in hubs. There's lots of you know ideas you can get, especially about the the hub specific features, how you can use the morphs and and things, and the webcam avatars too are cool.
Yeah, like one of the featured ones right now is this avatar.
We'll see. I don't know if you will actually be able to share your webcam. Actually, you have a separate webcam.
I have
Right?
a separate web. I'll use the separate webcam because otherwise I'll run into trouble. But I will share my
And so
avatar camera.
if your avatar has this feature, then the users will get an additional button in that menu to share their camera, their webcam to the avatar.
And now
so
I'm in it.
shows
Check
up
me.
on
Wait, let me zoom in so you can see my face. Look, I'm actually like in the helmet. Should probably be a little closer, but yeah. So you can do stuff like that too, which is pretty unique, I think, for avatars these days, at least in social VR
hmm
type platforms. And there's even like more basic ones, but just to give you an idea, I mean there are more avatars when you go to the featured tab. There are actually a lot more avatars than are even available there by searching. So sometimes, like if I type plant, I'm going to find where's my. Do I have to click featured? Oh no.
I think
Oh, that one's already featured anyway. It's in here. Oh, here's like an example of one we made for Halloween that actually has animation on it.
oh yeah, this is really cool.
So like the avatar itself has an idle animation. When I talk, I still scale up a little bit, and I have a little tiny mouth on there that opens and closes. But when I look around and stuff,
I like that. You have that spider one.
oh yeah.
That one's a really cool one to show that your skeleton doesn't have to be, you know, this default human looking thing, and it doesn't have to be the head doesn't have to be on top.
This was the one I was going to show that has a slightly
Yeah.
tilted neck. That it was an unexpected thing that happens.
That
But
one's cool because it also has multiple mouths that talk, which is really cool.
yeah, the other ones are just moving kind of in a weird idle.
Yeah.
But when I talk, the mouth opens and closes, and
that one's really cool.
I get the other. I considered making hands for this one too, that were just other plants. I thought that might be cool. And again, that model actually came from Sketchfab. Let's see. I know I'm getting lazy these days because Sketchfab is so good. I'll be like, first I'll just go there and be like, can I just grab a model somebody else made, like this bird or something? And it makes my life so much better. Where's the spider? Oh, there he is. Okay. Yeah, this one has a lot of limbs.
Yeah.
And they're just playing a little animation, but when I talk, his little mouth opens and closes, and I gave him 4 eyes instead of 2.
And if
yeah.
I don't know if you have the Blender file for this easily accessible, but if not, that's not a big deal. But the skeleton for this one actually goes down, and so like the whole rest of the body, you can still use other skeletons, other bones and stuff to do animations, just as long as the kind of initial rig is still present, the hips and the head and the hands. Those all have to be present and have to be a specific hierarchy with specific names. Because Hubs is going to be looking for that to position the avatar and to position the camera, like I talked about, and to animate the body and all that. But then you can also have additional bones to do things like tails or whatever else you want to do. And all these legs are or animated.
Oh, this was the one we had a top hat, but yeah,
Oh yeah.
I made him fancy. Um, I forgot how
But yeah,
shiny his black
you'll
parts are.
see the spider has hips and a body that are just completely below it, and that doesn't matter. Like those are just to position the avatar.
Yeah, and
Um,
the skeleton's pretty complex. It's just let me turn off the axes and the yeah. So when I hit play on this, I mean yeah. So yeah, he's like, you can see the part of it's like detached from the hips.
mhm.
I detached those two bones so that I could like move it up and down without actually changing the position of you in the world.
Yep.
So when you're in this avatar, even in VR, you might wonder, am I going up and down? Is that sickening? It doesn't, because the camera stays in one spot.
Mhm.
Um, but you can do kind of cool, additional animation on a thing, just like that plant had moving parts. So you can be really creative with this stuff, and we try to support as much of the crazy stuff you want to do as possible.
I like how that one has the silk just kind of going up into the
Oh,
with
right,
the
he
little
had it.
things
Yeah, he
that's
had a
hanging
web.
down.
I just
Yeah,
made it go to nowhere, and I think maybe this top vert's like
I think
barely
it's
skinned to something.
transparent. And, yeah.
Um, but yeah, many options. Do we have any questions out there? I haven't been monitoring the chat at all, but um, if people have any questions for us
Yeah,
while we're
Christian's been
here.
mostly answering questions in chat, but if anyone else has yeah any other questions before we
Yeah, I
wrap
would say
things
the
up.
the biggest gotchas when you're first doing it are getting your avatar facing the right way. So looking eyes toward negative y. That's the biggie. Um, Making sure that you use our template file so that the scale's right and you kind of get a lot of the stuff we've set up ahead of time for free.
Yeah, the names of all the bones are very particular, and that hierarchy is very particular. So you definitely can create that by hand theoretically, but I would just use the template. It's going to be a lot easier
Yeah,
because all case sensitive and very specific. So we want to improve that in the future, but we're not there yet.
yeah, and trying to think of anything else. I think those were the main things. Materials, can always be a little tricky here and there, but if you run into problems, again, talk to our community. They'll set you
Mhm.
straight. The Blender manual, I always hate telling people just go read the manual, but the Blender manual, if you do a search for GLTF, will take you right to a page that
Yeah,
has
I link to that page all the time about materials. Anytime people are
yeah,
asking
it has
questions, because
all the
it's actually
details.
very detailed about how to set up any, if you want to add, a missive map, or if you want to add, anything like it describes exactly the node setup you need to do. And some of them can be kind of tricky, like doing AO is kind of tricky, and doing a missive is kind of tricky, but they describe pretty well exactly what your node setup needs to look like to do it.
Yeah, this reference for GLTF 2.0, it has basically everything you want to know about how the graph should look.
And make sure when you're looking at the Blender manual, there's a little version drop down in the bottom left corner. Oftentimes, if you just do a quick search on the web, you might end up on like an older version page.
Yep,
So just make sure you're always on the right one. I've done that
that's
before and been
that is a
confused.
real pro tip right there
Yeah,
because I've done that too, and I've been like, where is the thing? And it's like
yeah,
I'm reading like 5 versions ago.
right, exactly.
But bear in mind, not every single thing in here will definitely be supported right now. Like clear coat, for example, is a new thing. Like it's supported in GLTF, may not be supported in hubs yet
Hmm.
because we're using 3JS as our renderer, and
And we're using a slightly older version, yeah.
yeah,
And on the topic of versions, the Blender add-on we have is only supported in the latest version of Blender. So make sure when you're downloading the add-on, you double check that the version of Blender you have is the version that the add-on is talking about. And it'll give you a little warning if you try to install it on another version of Blender. But things might mostly work, but then not work in subtle ways. And so you definitely just make sure you're upgraded to the latest version of
right.
Blender.
As of this video, it's
I think it was 2.9.
2.92.
Yeah.
But who knows when you're watching this? Could be a
Yep.
lot later.
And so yeah, just when you download the add-on, it'll mention which version of Blender you need to have, and yeah, it's always going to be the latest one. We try to keep it up to date.
Yep. Well, cool. I guess that's it for today. Um, we are going to do another stream where we probably next week where we talk about we have to figure out when
Hmm.
exactly. It'll probably be the same time, but we're going to talk more about environments and the requirements for that, and maybe some of the more details about the components and things that you can use to make your stuff.
Yeah, environments.
Cooler.
We'll definitely talk more about like all the different spawn point components and different things like that. Um, and yeah, we'll figure out the exact timing on that, but probably sometime next week, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, we're over an hour now. I guess we have a tendency to ramble, but we like doing these, and they're fun, and we can't wait to see what both the hubs and Sketchfab communities create. Again, we want to thank Sketchfab for doing this contest in the first place, for making these awesome, cool prizes and stuff, and this contest, I guess, ends at the end of the month. Is that the case?
I don't.
I need to look at the details, but yes, don't forget to go back to the Sketchfab blog, and you can see the Interdimensional Art Event Challenge, and also, like Dom said, go to hubs and look at other avatars that are out there. Also, check out all the different kinds of scenes people are making. If you go to our Discord, and we have a channel called Show and Tell, where our users often will post links to scenes and rooms that they've made that are like really cool. People are doing some really, really great stuff.
Yeah, and if you're working on an avatar or scene for the contest and you want to share it or show it off early, or get some feedback, every Friday at 11:30 Pacific we do
AM.
AM, yes. We do a meetup with the Hubs community where we just kind of hang out and informally talk about stuff. But it's a great place to show off your work and get some feedback. And if you're making an avatar, you can just show up as your avatar and have people check it out. And if you are making a space, we do lots of hub crawls where we go to different people's spaces and check them out. So definitely that's a great place to get feedback.
Did we trademark that name yet? That's a great name.
We didn't.
The hub crawl.
Should.
Well, cool. Yeah, I guess that's it for today. But again, I want to thank everybody for making this possible and continuing to make hubs great. And because it definitely takes more than our team; it takes the community itself and all the things that people are really pushing the boundaries of what it can do and what they want it to do. It just keeps us going. And so, yeah, we're excited to see what you guys do.
Yeah.
Any parting thoughts? Dom and I are both fully vaccinated. I just want to say, take this last minute.
Get vaccinated, please.
Do it.
Go do it.
Don't be a dum-dum. Just do it.
Not just for you.
Like, come on.